Argentina, if you want, in my view, it's a case example of something that it's going everywhere, that was going everywhere in the West, in Europe, in the United States. That is the denial of reality. That is what happened in Argentina regarding economy. What these politicians did is like they deny reality as much as they could because the resources were fueling this fantasy. And one day, the resources stop, so the fantasy crumbles.
I think that should give us courage, exposure to other people's perspectives.
Moving us in a good direction. So we're here at the Danube Institute, and before we talk about Milei and his extraordinary rise and his alliance with Trump and, by extension, Musk, what were the conditions that brought him to power? Talk to me.
Well, the situation in Argentina in 2023, when Milei got elected, was hell. Economy was a disaster, insecurity was terrible, corruption was obscene.
Crime?
Yes, crime was absolutely terrible. Let's take each one of these topics at a time. To begin with, inflation. Argentina in 2023 had literally the highest inflation rate on earth. It was 211% per year.
Wow.
And in December 2023...
211% per year.
Per year. And in the month of December 2023, is the month when Milei took power, inflation was 25% per month.
Oh my God, that's totally insane.
It's absolutely insane. Actually, it means that you can literally have no idea what the prices of things are because they are changing every single day.
Let's linger on this for a moment, because that would basically mean that you would absolutely wipe out the middle class. There could not possibly be a middle class because even the upper class, how could you 25% a month?
Well, exactly. That's why at that very same time, you were having over 50% of the population that was on poverty. I mean, literally 52% of the population was poor, over 40% poor, and around 12% extremely poor. And the major toll on people who are poor is inflation, because of course it decreases the few earnings that you have every month. And this inflation was the result of the policies that the governments that rule Argentina in all this century applied. These governments are leftist governments. The Kirchner couple, because it was a couple, first Nestor Kirchner between 2003 and 2007, then his wife, Cristina Kirchner, between 2007 and 2015, and after that, there was a little break with the center-right government of Mauricio Macri, and the left came back with Alberto Fernandez as president and Cristina Kirchner again as his vice president.
Okay, so what were the policies that led to that just absolutely extreme inflation rate?
Expenses. The thing is that they were expending a colossal amount of money that was representing literally 6% of the GDP. So per year, and this was in, yes.
I'm sorry, that's totally insane.
But that's why the thing is that it was absolutely fascinating during the campaign in 2023 when you were reading or watching international news that they were just presenting Milei by his personal characteristics, and the situation of Argentina was not known to them at all. They were not talking at all of this terrible situation that was there, and a situation that was produced by the policy of these people. And once again, 6% of deficit, 88% of public debt.
So what policy, was it just spending? Was it like what?
Spending in all kind of things, the same things that, for example, now Elon Musk with Doge is uncovering for the United States government, or kind of crazy nonsensical spendings. This is what you were having, but the most important thing that they were funding during all these years in Argentina was their own corruption networks. So this is very important because usually people forget that during many, many years, and the international organization that makes a ranking of the worst kleptocrats on earth was positioning Cristina Kirchner as the first one. He was even above from Mugabe, from Robert Mugabe. So this is like something, a terrible scheme. She has been condemned by, I mean, she was found guilty on many trials of corruption, but it was a whole network of corruption with very obscene things.
Fair trials.
Yes, absolutely. But the thing is that even trials where you have there are video recordings of things that were happening. For example, the Secretary of State for Public Work was caught by cameras at 3 a.m. showing literally $9 million, bags with $9 million in a convent. And there were the nuns that were taking the money and taking it inside the convent. These are images that you can see. There is video.
What were they
because it was the money that he was taking from the public works. This was the Secretary of State of Public Work of President Christina Kirchner. And this is just one of many examples. It's like, for example, there is a very famous Peronist politician, and we're going to dive into what Peronism is in a moment. But this politician that he was all his life in politics, and his declared salary was $4,000 per year. And he was found, once again, during 2023, he took a trip from Argentina to Spain in a private jet, and he was staying in a yacht that was costing $12,000 per day. And this is just, the point of the iceberg, because the thing here is that you have people, for example, the driver of Nestor Kirchner, he became overnight one of the richest persons in Argentina, and somebody who owned half of Patagonia. So you were having all these things.
Okay. So you have unprecedented corruption, and then that corruption was the main contributory factor to inflation.
And the thing, this was one of the main contributors to expanding. And then what happened with inflation is that once that they have generated it, the measures that they took in order to try to cope with it made the situation worse. So it's like they started the fire and then they burnt everything. So what were these measures? Well, to begin with, essentially trying to hide the sun with your finger, meaning that they have intervened the National Center of Statistics. Like every country has its center that tells the official rate of inflation and other things. So they intervene this center. They fire every technician, demograph, geographers, statisticians, people that are elaborating these numbers. They put in control of that the Secretary of State for Domestic Commerce. And this person, Guillermo Moreno, he was very well known because while intervening this entity, he was receiving employees that wanted to complain in his office with a gun on his desk.
With a gun on his desk?
Yes.
To threaten them, in other words?
Yes, I mean, except if he was very proud of his gun and he has just wanted to show it. But the idea is that the inflation rate, they faked the numbers during many years. And this had many international consequences because national debt is tied to the rates of growth of
That's
GDP
right.
or of inflation. Yeah. So now there are, for example, courts in the United States that are still pursuing Argentina with terrible interest for the country because of this treachery that they did during this time, of this cooking of the numbers. That was the first measure. The second measure was price control. And of course, we know what price control means. It's like if you need $1 to produce bread, but I am saying that you cannot sell your bread for more than 50 cents, you're going to stop producing bread. So there is not going to be any bread. And this is what happened in Argentina. You are having less and less products on sale, but also a problem is that they were applying this control of prices to many things, like, for example, electricity, gas. So these services, and this, of course, was having a consequence. For example, with electricity, you were having cuts of power during the whole summer. And Argentina's summer is very warm. You were having, for example, no more gas, so you have to import. Even Argentina has lots of gas resources. They had to import gas from Chile and Bolivia at exorbitant prices. And regarding services, because this is very important to understand that, for example, in Argentina, making like a full tank of your car was cheapest than buying a coffee with a little croissant, because this was being subsidized by the government. But the thing is that, of course, this meant on one hand more expenses for the government, more debt, and in the other hand, it meant that there was no petrol. So from time to time, the country was stopping because there was no petrol at all, and they had, you had to queue for hours in order to fuel your car. So it was a disaster. And also for services, transport was the same thing. Like every ticket for the train, for the metro, was costing pennies, because once again, subsidizing this. But what you had was like the services were decreasing at the level of dangerosity. For example, in 2012, a train whose brakes were not working couldn't stop when arriving to the station, and literally over 50 people and almost 50 people died, and over 800 got injured in this accident because the brakes were not working.
And the brakes were not working because they couldn't afford to pay people to...
Because there was no money for that, because they were just subsidizing, putting money like in order to make the services, just work at the minimum level and people not pay for the actual rate that it would have cost. So you were having all this situation. And for example, with control prices, also it had created lots of other disasters. For example, rent. Because if you make a maximum amount that you can charge for your apartment to be, rented.
There's rent control.
There was rent control, and as we know from every single economy book dealing of that, what happens is that the offering of rent decreases. So for example, between 2022 and 2023, the offer of apartments to rent in Buenos Aires went down by 75%. There were whole neighborhoods where you didn't have any single apartment offering for renting.
Wow, interesting.
So this created the world disaster for most of the population. And yes.
The people must have been incredibly frustrated by that. They saw their money evaporate. They saw public disasters, corruption, fraud, greed, grift. So they must have been enraged.
They were completely enraged, and also they were in constant fear for their lives, considering that homicides during the period of these governments increased by 45%. Because of two reasons. First of all, something that we also see in Europe, and that I believe that we also see in some states in the United States, like California, is that this legal philosophy, that the criminal is a victim of society, therefore there can be no punishment.
Right, like the mayor of Boston. Yeah.
So what was happening is like there were no punishment for people committing crimes, but the police forces were being stopped from acting. For example, famously in 2017, there was this police officer in Buenos Aires, Luis Chocobar. There was an American tourist who got stabbed 7 times by somebody who was stealing his photo camera. And this police officer, Luis Chocobar, he intervened, he ran, he chased the criminal. Several times he shot in the air to try to stop him. Finally, he had to shoot the guy, and he was sentenced to 2 years in prison. I mean, so this was the philosophy that was going on.
Did Milei commute that sentence? Did he give?
Yes, and his Minister of Security, Patricia Bullrich, who was her, she was running against him, and finally she allied him, made of this, the name of this police officer, Chocobar, made a doctrine. The Chocobar doctrine, meaning that now the police officers have even not only the right, but I would say even the duty to stop somebody who's stabbing people, even if it means using lethal force. And also one thing regarding people there being not only enraged, but also in fear, is that when you have this kind of laxism regarding security, what you will have also, it's real criminals, not only little criminals, but big criminals taking advantage of the situation, meaning narco. So you got Argentina before was just a transit country. Drugs were only passing by. And during this period, it became like the third cocaine exporter on earth. And you had, for example, entire cities like Rosario, the city where Lionel Messi, the football player, comes from, that between 2019 and 2023, literally 1,200 people got killed in relationship with narco stuff. So that was
the government. Every time I hear these stories, I'm always thinking to myself, like, is it just, are they just so driven by greed that they just don't care about their country? Is that the idea?
Look, in the case of the Kirchner couple and everyone working with them, of course there is greed because it has been proven there are thousands and thousands. This is not metaphorical; it's literally of trials of ongoing cases against them for corruption. So greed, it's a part of it, but I don't think that that's all. I think that the problem is much deeper, and the problem has to do with reality because we have Argentina, if you want, in my view. It's a case example of something that it's going everywhere, that was going everywhere in the West, in Europe, in the United States. That is the denial of reality. That is what happened in Argentina regarding economy. What these politicians did is like they deny reality as much as they could because their resources were fueling this fantasy. And one day the resources stop, so the fantasy crumbles. This is what happens with everything regarding insecurity, it's like ideas translate into policies. And if the ideas are bad, the policies are bad and citizens suffer. So that was the situation in Argentina when Milei started running for president.
Okay. So then he runs, and what happens?
Well, what happens is that he changed entirely how things were supposed to go.
How much did he win by?
He was like, well, in Argentina there are 2 rounds. So it's like you have a first round where he got second, around 30% of the vote. And then there is the second round that he ran.
So in the first round, what do? Just take the top people and then they...
The first 2.
Oh, the first 2.
The first 2, yes.
Okay.
There are some rules also because there must, if one of them managed to reach a certain percentage, there is no second round, but still, yes, the first 2 go into the second round. So the first one, and this is very surprising, but the one that got first is like the candidate of the Kirchner people that was the minister of the economy of the last Kirchner government.
That's hilarious.
So it's the guy who put that settled the country fight. That was also something very interesting because in 2023, if you were reading any international media, even media from the right, not only media from the left, they were talking about Milei, but they were not talking about his opponent, like this person who was the minister of the economy of disaster.
Right.
So Milei comes from, it's very interesting if you want, because I remember that in May 2023, I was visiting Argentina, and
you're from Argentina, yeah.
Yes, originally I am from Argentina. I have been living for over 20 years in Paris, but now in Budapest. But originally I'm from Argentina. I was born there. I grew up there. In 2023, I was visiting. I hadn't visited since before the pandemic, so everything was after over 3 years, everything is new, and people were starting to talk about this crazy person that was shouting on TV and launching himself as candidate for president, and they were not even knowing his name. They were calling him Miller, not even Milei, Miller, because people were not knowing him. And I checked this person. And I wrote a piece in May 2023 saying that from the point of view of my field of research, evolutionary psychology, it was obvious that this person was going, if not to win, at least to make it to a second round.
Where did you publish that?
In an Argentinian media called Seoul. I have several pieces with them over the last year and a half, one recently last month.
Okay, so he gets in. And what does he do when he gets into office? Well, first of all, I would imagine a lot of people are enraged that he gets in. And what does he do once he's in?
Well, he started doing what he has promised to do. Because the particularity of Milei is that he ran on a campaign that was not promising roses and flowers and many nice things. He was promising suffering.
I know. That was crazy. I know.
He promised suffering. He promised tears. And what is fascinating, because I haven't seen this in any other politician in the world, is that he was saying everything is going to be bad for at least 35 years.
Wow.
So when you think about that, it's like, okay, but if you think about that, it makes sense because it's like, okay, we're already suffering, but this other person is saying that this suffering is going to turn into a better country for our children and our grandchildren. So it makes sense. So this was his main promise. His main promise was
to deliver suffering.
Yes.
That's quite a campaign pledge.
It's that, but people, look, when he got elected, he made his speech. Usually the president in Argentina, when he gets elected, he makes a speech in the parliament, inside the parliament. But Milei made the speech in the parliament, but outside, like turning his back on the parliament and facing the crowd. And every time that he was, the thing that he pronounced the most of this speech was no hay plata, there is no money. And every time that he was saying this, the crowd was cheering and saying no hay plata. Like, they were clapping for this. But this was the reality. So the first thing was getting back to reality. And the thing that he did was stop with the crazy deficit. So he cut as much as he could. He fired only in the first year over 35,000 public servants. But at the same time, it makes sense because in Argentina, when he took power, 37% of all workers in Argentina were public servants.
Okay, that's crazy. That's completely unsustainable.
There are provinces in Argentina where it's like saying
unless you're sitting on oil reserves, that's completely unsustainable.
And saying provinces in Argentina is like states in the US, so where public servants represented over 70% of the people working there. And also the thing is that you didn't know which one of these jobs was real and which one was not.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are they doing? But what could they be doing?
Nothing. For example, there was, in 2023 also, there was this famous incident with, again, security cameras caught this guy going every single first day of the month to an ATM, taking from his pocket 49 cards and withdrawing money with each one of these cards. What was this? This person was one of the handlers of many fake public servants, meaning all these 49 people were public servants, but they were not receiving the money. It was other politicians that were receiving literally like 90% of these salaries, and these fake public servants, they were of course never showing up, but they were receiving 10% just for giving their names and signing papers. So this is an example that embodies the whole situation regarding the public servants over there. So he cut this, he chopped off the ministries. Afuera, for like the ministries were 18th, he dropped them to 9. And according to two different methods. One method was like making several ministries one. For example, he created a mega ministry of human capital. And it put into it education, culture, science, technology, family, lots of things were included into them. Others one, there were just cut out. For example, the Ministry of Gender. Because in Argentina, this is very important also to consider. Milei was the only candidate running on an anti-woke agenda on a country that even if nobody knew what the word woke means, Argentina was completely woke. The institutions were completely woke in Argentina, even like more ahead than other countries. In Argentina, you could go to City Hall and change your sex in your identity card just by a declaration. Meaning that, for example, if you're saying, no, now I am a woman, you could go into a woman's prison if you happen to be in jail. These kind of things. So Milei closed the Minister of Gender that before he entered office had more budget than the Minister of Defense or of the Minister of Security. Of course, he got attacked by lots of people for doing that, but not only was one of the main promises of his campaign, but also, once again, there was a huge amount of money that was going into this, but there was no real impact for women. Like Argentinian women, it's not that now that the ministry had closed are suffering anything because the ministry didn't help prevent any kind of damage made to women then. And also it showed the hypocrisy of the president that did this, Alberto Fernandez, the president from 2019 to 2023, that once again was putting enormous amount of money on the Ministry of Gender. But
Ministry of Gender.
The Ministry of Gender.
It's just what you need in a country that has no plata.
Absolutely.
No hay plata, but we have a Ministry of Gender.
But what is even more, I don't know what word to use. I will say fascinating from the point of view of how the human mind and human evil can go. A couple of months ago, like during a justice investigation, lots of pictures and videos came out. And long story short, when this person was president, he was beating his pregnant first lady. And there are like the pictures of the first lady with a blue eye were all over the media. And the thing here is that
That's a pretty serious accusation. You're sure about that?
No. It's not an accusation. It's a reality. It's like we can check and we can now show these images that were all over Argentinian media because these are
Jeez.
and
Wow.
she was pregnant. This was happening in the presidential palace. There are videos. There are pictures.
Should be in prison.
Well, he's facing, literally as we are talking, he's facing a trial for violence against women for this.
Good.
But the thing is that I was telling this because when this happened, the first lady called the Minister of Gender to ask for help. And the Minister of Gender, she literally said, give him time, he's going to calm down. I mean, there are the records of the messages of this.
Wow.
So once again, it was full hypocrisy on this.
So that's vile. That's disgusting. Yeah.
That's absolutely disgusting. But this is what was going on in Argentina before, till Milei got elected. So he closes this minister and many others, undersecretaries of state. I believe that's the word in the United States. There were 100. He made them 50. So chopping them by half. And the main thing of Milei is liberalizing economy. So as soon as he gets elected, he presents this huge package of over 600 articles and 300 pages that is for a complete liberalization of Argentinian economy.
What does that mean, liberalization? What do you mean?
It means that there are no more walls, things that make it difficult to do commerce. Like, because in Argentina, there are lots of regulations for everything.
He eliminated barriers.
Barriers for everything. I mean, he's trying to. He has already eliminated a lot. And this is when it becomes interesting that Milei, as soon as he gets elected, he just some time after, he creates this Minister of No Regulation. And the minister of this is Federico Sturzenegger, who also happens to be the main architect of this Argentinian economic reform.
Oh, interesting. So he has a minister to take away regulations.
He got Dodge 1 year before Dodge. I mean, Dodge, the chainsaw, that actually what we saw recently.
Yeah, that was awesome with the chainsaw.
And what we saw recently of Milei offering the chainsaw of to Elon Musk. But it's the physical embodiment of this Argentinian endeavor is now, I mean, when you think about that, and this, I do believe that I have written several articles on this because from my point of view, this is absolutely fascinating. Argentina was into oblivion, as Donald Trump said recently. And this was happening for over 80 years. Argentina was really top down. And now the most powerful country on earth, the biggest economy of earth, is inspiring one of its main initiatives, Dodge, on what has been done in Argentina.
Yeah.
When you think about that, it's fascinating.
Now, didn't Trump... So Trump wants tariffs on just about everybody. China, Mexico, Canada. He's going wild with tariffs. But didn't he say he wants a free trade zone with Argentina? Like the opposite of a tariff.
Yes.
With just, as far as I know, he just said Argentina. Is that right?
Yes, actually, he was asked this question this week, a couple of days ago, at the press conference. The journalist asked about Javier Milei trying to get a free trade agreement with the United States, what that he thinks about that, and he didn't say no. He said that he was a little bit vague, so we cannot say that he said yes, but he said right away that Javier Milei is doing an excellent job in Argentina.
Yeah. Trump loves him, Musk loves him, they're buddy, big time. I know Vivek loves him. So, okay. So just what would that mean if I understand what tariffs mean? What would it mean if there's a free trade? What does that mean? Just like, what does it mean?
Well, for Argentina, it would mean the best thing that it has happened in his history, because it means that they can sell anything that they want.
Like Mendoza wines is
Yes, like
mineral export. What does Argentina export?
well, mainly we
Or to the U.S. What would Argentina sell?
well, that's the thing, because the main exports of Argentina, it's agropecuary, like everything that has to do with farming. That's the main thing that we have in Argentina. Of course, there are other things, but this is the main one.
How many people are in Argentina?
44 million people, and it's a huge country. It's the 8th biggest country on earth. So it's extremely under people. Like,
So, okay, so 44 million. Okay, so we have like what, 333, 340 million. So we would. Should there'd be no taxes on any trade items?
We don't know, of course, how that would be made. There are so far it's an idea. There are several barriers, because first of all, we don't know how it can, be negotiating, and I don't think that American farmers are going to be happy about this. So we need to see how this can play out. But also another thing is that technically Argentina is not allowed to sign this agreement because of his duties regarding Mercosur. Mercosur is this alliance of South American countries,
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like
so
Brazil,
it'd have to get out of
Uruguay.
that first.
Exactly, it will have to get out from that first.
Do you guys grow avocados down there?
Yes. So
because I know those are huge. Well, you laugh, but I'm just saying we eat some truly insane number of avocados in the United States. And I know I read a piece a while ago about drug cartels are moving into the avocado business.
Oh, wow. Well, it makes sense.
Bizarre as that sounds. So, yeah, I was wondering. Okay, so you have agricultural exports. I wonder about the response to the U.S. farmers if they're going to be taxes. But so why do you think Trump and Musk? It seems to me, and I'm no expert in this at all, but it seems to me that they basically like worship this guy. They're complete admirers of his.
That I do not know if they worship. What I do know is
I mean, they're almost like a deferential, like.
Yes, but it makes sense. It makes sense at many levels.
Yeah, tell me why.
Because Milei, I do believe that what Milei has always claimed, and this is very interesting. I was mentioning.
Let me take back the word worship. Let me say like profound admiration.
Yes,
that
could be. It makes sense.
Okay, so yeah, sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, please. It's I do think that it can certainly be some admiration, and if you ask me why, I will say that the main reason will be because Milei has shown that what seems impossible can be done. Milei has shown that you can be a complete outsider with no political party. People can treat you as a joke or as somebody who is disgusting, and still you can not only manage to get into power, but also to use that power to transform entirely your country. This is the first thing that I would say. Maybe if they admire him, it could be maybe for that. The second thing that for me it really makes sense is that Milei, his fight is not only for Argentina. His fight is for liberty, and his fight is for the values of the West. So this is very important in Milei's philosophy.
Yeah, okay, explain that to me. I'm a big fan of that, of the West.
Milei, in his campaign, is very interesting, because every country has, during campaigns, like for political speeches, their time frame, right? For example, in Europe, people are going to be as far as, I don't know, in France, École. They're not going to be farther. In Argentina, that was till the dictatorship of 76-83. Like everybody was, going back till then, but not farther back. Milei, what he reminded everybody during the campaign is that at the beginning of the 20th century, Argentina was a world power. And this is true. I mean, at the beginning of the 20th century, Argentinians visiting Paris were like Qataris visiting Paris nowadays. They were very rich people. When you check different stats regarding Argentina, it was at the same level as the United States or Australia.
Until the 90s, and then the Peter Singer, Paul Singer.
Yeah, I mean, Argentina, this was like really at the beginning of the 20th century,
Yeah.
and it stopped in the 30s. So it stopped like almost 1 century ago. But there is why Argentina was so was on this path of growth and was so important 1 century ago, because it had applied in the 19th century the principles of liberal economy. Principles that are very linked to the Enlightenment, principles of reason, principles of progress, principles of science. The people ruling Argentina in the 19th century, for example, Domingo Faustino Sarmiento, who was the greatest, is the father of Argentinian public school system. He was the president of Argentina. He was one of the most important Argentinians alive, dead. He was one of them. Julio Argentino Roca, who was a president of Argentina, also promoting liberal economy. They all made Argentina a very rich country, or a country that started on the path of being rich. Milei was constantly saying, we need to get back to this.
Okay. So there are, and we shouldn't whitewash it, we shouldn't ignore it. There are some pretty grave, horrific injustices in your country. The desaparecidos, the disappeared, there's some pretty horrific things that happened in that little interim, right?
You mean between the dictatorship of 76 and 83? Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know the dates, but yeah. So, okay. So going back to, so we have Musk, Trump, and it's always interesting to me when I watch, not read, but watch those videos, the way they treat him is fascinating to me. Now, in the United States, you could say this is a real phenomenon or not a real phenomenon. Increasingly, I'm starting to believe it is a real phenomenon. TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. Do people have MDS?
It's quite funny that you ask that, because last year I was in Argentina, and I started to tell some people that their friends were suffering from Milei derangement syndrome, because there is some people, and this is like people that have fought against the leftist corrupt government that I mentioned, people, that were in the same center-right party with different ideas, but still, going together, that they got completely crazy regarding Milei, but seeing things that are not there, in the same way as people in the United States see things on Trump that, of course, it doesn't mean that you cannot criticize him. We're not talking about criticism. We're talking about criticism that is not real. Yeah,
it's interesting. I just spent the weekend with Michael Shermer, and he told me he put out a video saying when Trump got elected, he said, listen, Trump's got elected. I mean, even if you don't like him, it's not the end of the world. Like, so don't go completely crazy. And he told me that the amount of shit that he received from that was great. Just by telling people, okay, the guy's got elected, he's not going to, put up gas chambers and start, murdering people. There is something in Argentina now where people are just completely crazed. Not only that they like what he's doing, but they claim that he's doing things that he's not doing, and then.
Oh, of course. I mean, you have, regarding the lies from not only the Argentinian press but the international press, that's constant. I mean, it's last year, I went to Argentina to do a big report for the main French newsweek, Le Point, on the situation there. I wrote 7 articles on this, and what had motivated me to write these things is that I was outraged by what I was reading on the European press regarding the situation in Argentina, and things that they were saying regarding Milei. For example, they were saying that the inflation was his fault, that poverty was his fault, that he was cutting funds for this. And yes, he's cutting funds for lots of things, but that's justified. And that's the main problem. I think that the battle here, in my view, regarding people with... and this, I want to be clear with this. It's not, that I am making a message in favor of Milei or in favor of Trump. What I mean is, there is reality. And if you have the choice between people who accept reality and want to deal with that, and people who deny reality, I mean, you don't have much choice. It's like you're on one side or the other. And this, I do believe that this is the situation we're having in Argentina. I do believe also that it was the situation last year in the US election. So it's, I mean, even if you don't like the candidate, but of course, there is people that want to like the candidate and that their elite sensibilities are, harmed by some things that they see.
Okay, so let's. Okay, so how long has he been in office now?
1 year and 14 months.
Okay.
He took office on 10 December 2023.
Okay, so you started telling me that inflation was an astonishing 25% a month. I mean, that it truly, I have to say, that blows my mind. Okay, what is so I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask: what have the tangible, discrete, demonstrable results been? What are the metrics? What are the numbers? Can you give us any kind of stats on inflation? Can you give us stats on criminality, number of people in poverty? Go for it.
Do you remember that I mentioned that inflation in December 2023 was 25% per month?
Yes.
Do you know how much was inflation in December 2024? 2.2.
I was going to say, yeah.
So this is not magic. I mean, yes, what we're seeing
yeah.
in Argentina
So most people, I think, they don't understand the relationship between, and this is another episode, but government spending and inflation.
It's very easy. It's like if the government spends, how the government makes to cover these expenses? They print money.
Yeah. Well, how else are they going to do it? There's no other way to do it.
So the thing is that you stop printing money.
I guess you could raise taxes, but then you still have to cover that somehow.
Exactly. And also it's like the problem in a country like Argentina where most of the workers are in informality, meaning that they are not workers that are declared, it's black market jobs. What happens is that taxes is what Argentinians call hunting in the zoo. It's like you are always taking money from the same people. So you're
hunting in the zoo.
Yeah. So you're just impoverishing, people.
I like that. Hunting in the zoo.
Yeah, Argentinians are very inventive.
Hunting in the zoo. Yeah. I like that.
So the thing is that you cannot, yes, that's what these leftist governments were doing. They were making Argentina was one of the countries with the highest tax pressure on earth.
So that must cause people to go to the underground economy and to try to opt out. It must.
Yeah, of course. That's what was happening with all the bad consequences of that for the state also, because it's like you don't receive any more money. But just to get back to your question of...
Yeah, so you gave me inflation, which has gone from 25 to 2, which is extraordinary. Can you... What's up with crime?
Yes.
What's up with deficit?
Regarding deficit, in February, so once again, Milei takes office in December 2023. February 2024, deficit 0.
Deficit 0.
From 6% to 0. And it's there since that moment. So it has been 0 for a year now. That's why also it was able to control inflation. Also, inflation for alimentary products like food. In June, it got to 0.
Oh, wow.
And that was the thing that was having the highest inflation, even higher than the ones that I mentioned.
Is there a flat tax there, a graduated tax? What kind of tax is there in Argentina?
There are so many taxes. It's like it's a very complex and completely asphyxiating system of taxes where you have like federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes, also like mandatory taxes, for example, for unions. So they take most of your money.
Okay.
It's a complete asphyxiating system.
Okay, so let's go back to my other thing, and I guess I have a personal interest for asking the question.
Yes,
I think we're going to go there at some point. But what's up with the crime?
Well, the crime, the person who was running against Milei during the presidential campaign of 2023, Patricia Bullrich, she was running for the center-right party, and full disclosure, I had worked in her campaign. She didn't manage to enter into the second round, but after the 2 days after she lost, she said that it was necessary to vote for Milei, and she quoted the phrase of something from one of the independence leaders of South America in the 19th century, that is when your country is being threatened, everything is allowed except not to protect it. And she rallied him, and now she has become she's Minister of Security, right? Domestic security. So she's the one in charge of going against crime. And there have been lots of advances in this.
Does she speak English?
I think so, yeah. I think that she has a PhD. She's I don't know if she can make an interview in English. I can ask her if you want.
I would love to talk to her about security.
Well, what she's doing is like she's getting inspiration from the Bukele model in El Salvador. They are not applying it at the same level because it's different.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So basically they're arresting gang members of the people who commit the most crimes, and they're just incarcerating them.
You mean in El Salvador?
Yeah.
Yes, in El Salvador, what happened, it's quite easy. What happened is like Bukele, he won on a campaign that he was going to try to fight gangs. And it's a good reminder to know that El Salvador was the country with the highest rate of homicide on earth.
That's right. I remember that. And also they asked to take some US prisoners for a certain amount of money. And then I don't really know what I'd have to really think about that, but I haven't really thought about it, but that it would save, if the United States wants to save money, they just send prisoners to El Salvador.
That I don't know.
Yeah, I can't speak to that. I don't know if it's a good idea.
It's true the United States has a private prison system, so it could,
again, I'm not rendering a judgment on that. I just thought that was interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. Okay, so crime is down.
Crime, I wouldn't say that crime is down, because the thing is that they are being more effective. They are giving power to the police to do their job.
Right.
They are trying to change the law, for example, to lower the age that you can be legally pursued as an adult, because in Argentina, you have kids from 8, 9 years old that know how to handle a gun. Most of the robberies are committed by 12, 13 years old boys. Last week, there was a robbery.
So that makes me not want to go there.
Well, the thing is where, because that's the thing. It's like, think about the United states, different laws. So you have, for example, the city of Buenos Aires.
Well, we would be in Buenos Aires. That's where
but you have the city of Buenos Aires and you have the province of Buenos Aires. The city of Buenos Aires, it's not as bad as the province of Buenos Aires that is a bloodbath. But the province of Buenos Aires is still run by one of the formerly Kirchner people. His name is Axel Kicillof. He's the governor. He's on his second term, and he applies the very same principles as the Kirchner were applying in the whole Argentina for 16 years. What means that you are having people being killed. I think that this just came out last week, so at least 2 people are being killed per day. In the province of Buenos Aires, and with horrible things. Last week, in the robbery, very violent robbery of a car, they throw the 7-year-old girl that was in the car. They throw her out from the window, but she got caught into the car. They ran the car for over 1 kilometer with the girl, and of course, she killed her by being dismembered. This is horrific, but this is what happened. And the thing is that the criminals were 14 years old. So you need to change the law in order to make people that have the ability to do these things to be pursued as an adult.
I don't even know. That is just... Wow. All right. So inflation, crime, has this come at a price to the ecological situation? I'm thinking in Haiti, to try to improve their economy, they just did clear cutting, and they just kind of did crazy. Now their environment is a catastrophe. How is the environment?
Look, the environmental situation in Argentina has many ecosystems. It's once again 8th biggest country on earth. So it's like you have Patagonia, you have.
I loved Patagonia when I was there, by the way.
It's amazing. Patagonia is absolutely amazing, but also Patagonia itself is very different. If you're in the Atlantic side, that is much more desertic. If you're in the side of the Andes, that it's really looks like Switzerland, Norway. It looks like the Alps. Very different. And of course, you have the north that is very desertic. You have another part of the country that it's kind of tropical. So many different ecosystems. The thing is that Milei in this, he's going to apply, as we talk now, I think that these days they are having meetings with Canadian miners, like mining companies, because the idea is going for the drill baby drill. So that's the thing. So, but at the same time, it's
and
like,
who's he going to sell that oil to? The U.S.
the thing is not only, I mean, there are oil resources.
Natural gas or what?
There is also gas, but also there are lots of lithium stocks.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, there are a lot. That one of the key things
That's
over
one
there.
of the minerals that we need the most. That's in diminishing.
And also one of the things that they want to try to do is Argentina was a pioneer in nuclear energy, and now they are going to try. They have already presented Milei's government. One of his key advisors is both an economist and a nuclear physicist, and and
we need advisors like that. Yeah.
And well, the thing is that they are going to try to build a new nuclear park of energy in Argentina and tie that to artificial intelligence, like fuel in artificial intelligence.
Wow.
And their goal is to try to make a new Silicon Valley in Patagonia.
Wow, I certainly hope he's successful for that. Switching gears just a little bit, what's up with the Falklands?
Okay.
I mean, is there, because I remember the conflict with England and the United States sided with England because of the quote unquote special friendship, among other things, Argentina being in our sphere more broadly. Is that died down now? I mean, is that what's going on with that?
No, that's like not at all. The Falkland Wars happened between April and June 1982.
I'm amazed that you can remember the dates.
Well, it's I mean, no, but in Argentina it's a big thing, and we have national holidays with that.
Yeah.
So there is a national holiday, and very interesting. The national holidays is for the beginning of the Falkland War, not for the end. Very interesting.
Interesting. So what's the big, like, why does everybody want the Falklands? What's
Well,
the big deal with
the
the
thing is
Falklands?
that technically, for example, if you don't want them, that goes against Argentinian constitution, because there was a reform of the Argentinian constitution in 1994 that included that the Falkland Island, and I'm going to be bashed by Argentinians if I say Falkland because the Argentinian name is Malvinas, that the Malvinas, it's something that we are, it's a reclaim, like a claim that we are never going to give up on. It's on the Argentinian constitution. And the thing is that
is it just a matter of natural pride? Is there actually anything in the Falklands?
I mean, what
is in? Is there like
no?
Does anybody live there?
Like the Kelpers that they live there, and they have been there for a very long time, for 2 centuries.
Are there like minerals? I mean, what is the,
no? There is nothing. I mean, there are of course a few things, but it's not for the land itself. The interest there is the maritime zone, like the sea that is around, because there you have
fishing. So is there?
Yes, also fishing, but remember that it's very close to Antarctica also. So you have like strategic interests and also resources over there. Also, for example, if it happens to be oil in those, offshore things. So is of interest. But the thing is that it has, it's a matter of national pride.
So like, again, excuse my ignorance on this. So what are the English have battleships? Or I mean, how do they?
No, well, it's like what happened is this. It's the dictatorship started in, like, the last Argentinian dictatorship started in 1976, March 1976. There is a national holiday in Argentina also for that, and ended in 83. The Falkland War was in 82. What this means is that this was at the end of the dictatorship, when they were really losing control, losing lots of things. They were at the end. So there was this person in charge, the general in charge of this de facto government there, who had the idea to invade the Falkland to reclaim it back. He woke up one day and he says, okay, I am losing, so let's say, because of course it's a dictatorship. So they sent 18 years old boys, like, to die there from every part of the country. Like, literally, I was telling you about the Argentinian ecosystem. They sent people from the desert, from the tropics, to this very, arid Patagonian kind land, to die there, to fight against one of the
That's
biggest
heartbreaking.
armies on earth. Back in the day, that was the British. Because the thing is that what these people didn't check was the news, so they didn't realize that the person in power in the United Kingdom was Margaret Thatcher. And Margaret Thatcher, she was at a very particular moment also during her government, where she was not at the top of the polls regarding public approval. And she really couldn't let this go, and she didn't want it to. And there are conversations. Henry Kissinger tells this in his latest book, Leadership, magnificent book, by the way. He tells the whole story of how Ronald Reagan, he tried to make Margaret Thatcher desist from this. Let's try to reach an agreement. And Margaret was, I'm not going to drop this. And it's funny because it seems that Ronald Reagan said, give Maggie whatever she wants. So there was war that Argentina lost. And the thing is, Margaret Thatcher in Argentina is still somebody who is hated. And this
I'm sure.
has been shown during the campaign in 2023 with Milei.
Is there any bad feelings, ill will in Argentina toward the English?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's like, no. For that's kind of funny because I have never had the impression that anybody that I know or anything that I read shows any kind of animosity towards British people.
Interesting.
Like, yeah.
I remember, if I may reflect, I went to Argentina. I lived in South America for a year, and after I graduated from college, and I remember a few things about it besides the incredible food and wine and steaks. I remember the women used to wear their pants unbuttoned.
Yeah, it was a trend.
Oh, do you remember that?
Yeah.
I thought you were too young to remember that. And I remember the first time and it was like down. And I remember the first time I saw that, I'm like that just completely blew my mind. Like I don't know where I was going with that story.
Even if I was too young, I do remember that because those things you never forget.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that story. Okay, so is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you, or any other things you want to say about Argentina or Milei or Milei's relationship with Trump or anything else?
Yes, I do think that there is something, in my view, crucial to understand why Milei won and why Milei is the kind of leader that it was needed during that moment, and that it can help explain also other leaders that are winning around the world, like Donald Trump or many others. And that is what is called a dominant leader. In evolutionary psychology, leaders who show strength, like physical and rhetorical strength, muscular faces, like prominent chin, a very, very violent rhetoric. These people show what is technically called a dominant leadership. What it means is like you're going to destroy the enemy. And this is something that our mind has evolved over millions of years to look for in leadership. Why? Because one of the basic things for humans, it's in-group cooperation, out-group conflict. And when you have that, a leader, it's as the word means in most of cultures around Earth, tall man, right? This idea that somebody that has the physical strength to make the own group to comply to what is required from, and for the other group to be afraid. So, and this thing, and you see that, for example, there are studies that have been done regarding West Point cadets. They have analyzed their pictures, their face picture, and their career over the years. And what you have is those that have the most masculine dominant faces are the ones that get a richer rank, a higher rank. And this has also been widely proven that we humans, we go for this kind of leaders in times of war. We avoid these leaders in times of peace. And even the same leader, like Winston Churchill, people were following him during the war. Right away after the war, thank you, you can go back home now.
Right.
This is very important to understand this kind of leadership. And I do believe that this also explains part of this friendship between Trump and Milei and other leaders, that they are fighting a war against wokeism, against leftism, against all this ideology that over the past decades has been very detrimental for the West. So I do think that that's a very crucial thing to consider. And the last thing that I will add is regarding the West itself. According to what I understand, in Milei's view, fighting for Argentina is fighting for the West. I do know that Trump is also American first, but I still think that on some issues, for him, American first means the West first. And if you're not with America, maybe it's because you're not for the West. Maybe.
Interesting. So I'm just, real quick before we close, I would like to have someone on the show who thinks Milei is doing a terrible job.
No. Let me be clear with this.
Okay.
Let me be very, very clear.
I mean, they probably won't come on anyway,
but,
so there's no point to
but
it,
I want to be very clear with this. Milei has been there for 14 months.
Okay.
The results in the economy are a miracle. This means that we cannot criticize it. No, of course, I have lots of criticism on lots of things. But one thing is criticize what you think that is not being done entirely well, what you think that maybe he could improve, some things that worry you. And other thing is to say he's doing a terrible job. To say that he's doing a bad job, it's impossible. I mean,
I'm sure someone believes I'd like to have him on the show.
No, but that's just delusional. It's like saying that because the problem is that that's not knowing what was the reality of Argentina. The main problem for Argentinians every day was inflation. Was like going to the supermarket and not being able to buy food because the prices were skyrocketing.
Right.
Because your salary was decreasing literally every minute. Right. So that was the main problem, and he solved that problem. That doesn't mean, once again, that there are not other things that you can criticize. Sure. Of course there are. But that he's doing a poor job, a bad job, that's just not possible.
You think everybody would agree with that in terms of inflation?
No. In terms of inflation, people that don't agree, they're just denying reality. So I mean, there are stats. Inflation was, once again, 25% per month. Now it's 2% per month.
It's a moot point because they won't come on anyway, so there's no point to invite them on.
But I think that it will be interesting because there are people that have been supporters of Milei, that are writing with some criticism on him, and even myself, when I write articles on this, I say, well, I mean, I do believe, I am convinced that Argentina has the biggest global protagonist opportunity in their entire existence.
Interesting.
But this depends on what Milei is going to do. It also depends on the opposition, but it depends on Milei, on what Milei is doing now, what he's going to do tomorrow. So you can make this kind of, alerts, you can make lots of criticism, but the economy has been a miracle. He has solved this problem, and also the deep reform of the state. In this regard, I am convinced that showing results on these areas and showing such a strong fight for some issues, I do believe that Argentina is kind of the beacon of the West at this moment.
Leonardo, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you to you, Peter.
All right, everybody, keep watching.